Hey, at least you didn't have to go get a screw taken out of your tire and pull plug at 7:40 this morning.
So it's in there.
Sorry,
Am I doing it or?
Oh, good luck with that butyrol or anything if you need that.
What do you need?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like I said,
I
you're short.
forgot, my fault.
Yeah, she's like, we'll let you know if we can get it. I'm like,
Sarah had
Yeah.
to hold her. So she came over
Basically,
yesterday. We
you get a
spent
spot
some
where
time
he gets a bad attack, you just have to go to the nursery.
and we haven't expired. It's
Technically,
only expired by a month, but
Yeah.
I still use it, but,
trust me, I think 6 months to 8 months, you're so fine.
yeah. But
Because that's what we had on point. Yeah.
I give up. No,
I didn't realize we figured out to use it this weekend.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I could ask you to start the meeting. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible.
Next, I have chair comments. Chair doesn't have any comments at this point. And we follow that with presentation items. And we'll start off with, North Wales Water Authority.
I'm Joe Murphy. I'm the Assistant Operations Director for North Wales Water Authority. No formal presentation, but make you aware that we are going to start a busing program. We'll be in Britain probably the first week of April. We'll be beginning our hydrant maintenance program shortly thereafter, where we start painting the fire hydrants and greasing and all that.
You can sit down if you want.
We hand these out here. And then, yeah, the large thing that we have going is, I'm sure you're aware that we have a pipeline that's been going up Park Road, down Ferry over to Penn Township. And we're doing that in partnership with North Penn Water Authority. And Mr. Belita will take the lead on explaining all that next when he comes up. If you have any questions.
And the other board members have questions?
I don't, I'm not in your district, so
Is this the only, I think you're my water authority. No, you're not. Don't worry. No, you are. North Wales, yes. Sorry. So other than this Park Road, Ferry Road project, is there anything else 5 years out from now? Or is there any other major things that we should be looking at, replacing, upgrading pipes and things?
We do not have any on the state.
Okay.
Ryan continuously sends us his paving schedules and we look at that and we'll try to determine. And one of the things that would be helpful is If you had a 5-year program that I can share, that would be very helpful as well, but at this point, we don't have any major plans for mains or services or anything like that.
How's the tank? Everything working properly with the tank?
Tank is working well. Its sister is being built right now over in Montgomery Township, which I'm sure you can see. And if anybody has any questions about the one at the Home Depot, once they're both operational, that one will be taken out of service and painted.
And then left there, is that what you?
It will still be there.
Questions?
Yep.
Yeah. My biggest question was, again, what you brought up was, anything you're doing that would affect the roads. So we make sure we don't pave them and you come in and rip them up.
We
But
can
you're
have that
saying
either.
you coordinate that, so that's a definite plus. Any questions? Staff have any questions?
You just mentioned the road paving program. That is something that we're looking to create a more formal document. While I would love to have a 5-year road program, we're gonna start with a 3-year. And so we're currently under development right now. I think we are in a good position to forward you what we are hoping to do for this year, next year, and the following year. And that's something that we're going to continue to build upon and want to incorporate all of the other authorities, not just North Wales Water Authority, to make sure that we are all on the same page, including PICO, gas, and Aqua. I know those two are the outliers and more difficult to coordinate with, but that is our intention.
Well, they would be wonderful if we had a 3-year plan. And we would do everything we could to work together to make sure that the plan paved once and share in the cost and save everybody a little bit of money.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, we have North Penn Water Authority. Roberto.
Good morning, I'm Tony Bolito, the Executive Director of North Penn Water Authority. And in partnership with Joe in North Wales, just wanted to flesh out a little bit more details on the Scotty Road transmission main project that he gave out those handouts. One very useful resource for everybody to keep track of the progress of this project is the website that's also contained in what was distributed. So we'll be updating that website on a regular basis to track progress. We expect that our contractor, Joe Allen Bradley, will begin construction quite soon in the spring, maybe another month or so. It will go throughout the summer. We're expecting completion by the fall. This is a very large project. It's a 16-inch transmission main that runs for 5 miles up Park Avenue and then making a right turn on Ferry Road and going all the way to 313. So it's a major capital construction project. Couple of points I wanted to make regarding that, and I've had some discussions with Matt on this, is that with the Township's permission, we would like to be able to send letters to current residents who are fronting on Ferry Road, who have a well right now, and just to let them know that there's a transmission main coming down the road, and if they would like the option of hooking into public water, now would be the time to do it. It would make sense if someone has a well that's not performing well, or it has water quality problems, or just doesn't have the yield. Better for us to just give them that option. Certainly we don't require it, but we want them to know ahead of time so that we don't have a situation where after the project is all completed and the road is paved, a resident calls and says, hey, I'd like to tap in, and then we have to dig up a newly paved road. We don't want that to happen. We've already gotten one inquiry with regard to that from a current resident, and so with the Township's permission, our usual standard practice is to send such a letter from North Penn Water Authority just to the residents on the immediately fronting on Ferry, obviously on the New Britain Township side, understanding that that's the dividing line with Doylestown Township, and ask their permission. And we would not be seeking we would not be sending a letter to anybody who is some distance away, but just fronting right on Ferry Road. So before doing that, we want to just ask the Township if there's any objection to that.
Objection?
I think Greg has something to say.
Yeah, I do.
Well, I believe you told us that there was a, part of our plan is not to have water. And I think this was in the letter that was sent to Mr. Bender at North Wales, that we don't, it's not in our comprehensive plan to run water to our residents in that area. So I think that's something we'd have to discuss.
Which is precisely why we're asking the township's permission, because we don't want to do that without the township agreeing to that. Although having said that, what we're envisioning and what I just proposed would not be in the sense of promoting development, but really just giving your current residents who may have a problem with their well, the option to have public water. And so in our perspective, that seems like a benefit to your current residents. But with having said that, we'll only do that if the board is in agreement with that.
No, I think it's something we'd have to take under consideration because that is supposed to be our on-lot septic and our well area of the township. It's around the lake. It's the watershed area. We're attempting to, have less density in that area to, maintain the bucolic nature. I love that word in our comp plan. And I acknowledge that you're saying that you're going to only send it to the residents that are immediately fronted on the road, but creep happens as soon as you make one connection. So, instead of having a policy of, oh, we're just going to allow this to happen, there will eventually be somebody who'll say, well, you let them do it. Why not us? And that's where you start to go down that very slippery slope. So,
And that's certainly one way to look at it, and that's fine, and we'll honor that. If that's the case, if that is ultimately the decision of the township board, then we'll simply have to communicate to those who do inquire, such as this one resident, that the township won't allow it, and they'll have to do something to rectify the problem with their well, whatever that might happen to be. And so
I think as a board, we're gonna have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So talking about that, have you seen PFAS starting to creep into places that you have not thought that it would come?
Yeah, well, PFAS is a very large topic in the water business right now. And we know that new regulations have come out with that with regard to the state DEP. And we're expecting the federal EPA to come out with some new regulations any day now. The good news is that our Forest Park Water Treatment Plant will be able to meet those new regulations without any difficulty. But having said that, there is a likelihood that there are a lot of private residences who may have a PFAS problem that they're not aware of. And there may be also a lot of municipal systems, neighboring townships and boroughs who currently operate a groundwater system, certainly Forest Park is a surface water system, who need to do the economic analysis to decide, are they going to put expensive treatment on their wells to treat for PFAS, or would they like to purchase water from Forest Park in bulk? So that is something that we are aware our neighbors are going to be doing that evaluation. So PFAS is looming as a very important topic, and it could result in the need for us to even expand that Forest Park treatment plant sooner rather than later to be able to accommodate the increased capacity that might occur.
So then residents who find themselves that were on wells that now have PFAS, what is their recourse? What is their plan to mitigate that? Do they try to join on to municipal water?
That's any resident who has any water quality issues, will certainly have to bear the burden themselves of treating their own well for any number of different parameters, PFAS just being another one. So there could be, a greater interest amongst private well owners to get off their well and to get onto public water. Hence, there could be a growing interest in public water. So that balance that we need to find between not wanting public water to go into areas where any particular township does not want to see development versus the need to deal with residents who have a real problem with their wells. So groundwater contamination has those implications.
Okay.
One other point, if I may, regarding along the route of Ferry Road, is that we've been in dialogue with the Shrine of Jehovah, and they've got their own water system and they've got a tank, and they've had a variety of different problems with leaks in that system and low pressure issues. And we've been in dialogue with them about whether or not they would have any interest in connecting to that line along Ferry Road. And so our intention is to give them that option. We've had positive dialogue with them. They are interested. They haven't said, yes, hook us up right away. But since that line is coming right in front of their front door, so to speak, our intention is to put a stub going into their property that only makes sense so that we don't have to rip up the road in the future. There is very much an interest that they have we can solve their pressure problems and potential water quality problems by hooking them up. And that's not a residence. Obviously, that's a very large facility that has sometimes thousands of people in attendance at their public events. So they're very interested in having a more robust water system. And so our dialogue with them has been positive, and our anticipation is that they would become a customer of North Penn Water Authority in the near future. So I wanted to make the board aware of that as well.
What about the Pine Run facility? Have they contacted you
That
or?
would be on the North Wales side.
Okay,
That would be on the North Wales side. Yeah, there's clear delineation between, exactly north of Ferry Road or south of Ferry Road. That would be potential customers from North Penn versus North Wales. So
okay.
Perhaps Joe Murphy could have some could discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, we currently own and operate the Pine Run water system, and we do have intention of tying it together someday.
Any other questions?
Have one other one.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, I saw in one of your last meeting minutes from December, you were looking at the City Works roadmap consulting. How's that plan going?
Oh, very good. We're very high tech when it comes to GIS and City Works, and all of our infrastructure is digitized, and it's a very important tool for us to be able to locate digitally all of our infrastructure systems. So it's been a very helpful resource. And potentially the township wants some assistance or some guidance on what we did and how the township perhaps could benefit. I could have our IT person get in touch with the appropriate person at the township if that would be helpful.
Okay, how long did the whole project take?
About a year.
About a year?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
And just one other item related to Ferry Road, we recognize that it would not be helpful to have overnight work along the Park Avenue section that runs from the treatment plant up to Ferry Road, and so there won't be any overnight work there. But the anticipation is that there would be some overnight work along the Ferry Road section, and that there would be some detours. Again, this will all be on the website, so that it won't be the entire length of the detour. But as the contractor moves along, sections will be detoured so that traffic can go around that. And closing down small sections of a road can help the contractor move a lot more quickly than simply closing one lane and having a flagger bringing the traffic one way or the other. So that'll help expedite the completion of the project.
A question, is the pipe going directly underneath the middle of the road, or is it going to be one side or the other?
I believe it's one side. Joe, you would probably have more detail on it.
It's basically in the middle of the Britain side.
The Britain side.
Middle of New Britain side, okay.
Okay. Yeah, Joe's got the actual alignment there. So that's what I wanted to update the board on.
Good.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Chalfont-New Township Joint Sewer Authority.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Again, John Schmidt, Executive Director of Sewer Authority. And I also have on this side of the room is most of our board members. Everybody wants introduction, which we have a new one, Mike Sullivan on the right side. Tim Hagee, Bill Evans, and Preston Campbell. They're here to watch over everything I say. So you want to know about projects, obviously we've been before you many times for this pump station project. I'm glad to say it's finally well on their way. Creating a mess, road closures, the whole works, which comes with, various problems, complaints, issues, which every construction project is going to, including theirs. So, but I want to thank your staff. You've been very helpful. Mike's been posting stuff on the website for road closures, and Brian's been very helpful addressing the issues that we have with things going on. Appreciate that very much. Approximately 40%, I guess, of the pipeline work is done. They're getting ready to start on Barry Road at the bottom. There will be a road closure there. Then moving up to Schoolhouse Road. Everything that's left pipeline wise is in Barry Road and Schoolhouse Road. Hope to have that done by sometime this summer. Any questions on that you'd like to?
Any other future plans in the books right now, or?
Nothing of that nature. No. there is, one other project, it's totally separate from this, we're done with that, I'll go move on to a different project. The High Point project, the townhouse development, just so you know, there is some off-site sewer work planned for that, that's not on the site of the High Point project, we asked the developer to, make some improvements on Schoolhouse Road, we have a pump station, Schoolhouse, we're concerned about the capacity in that pump station with this, all this new flow from the townhome, so what they will be doing in conjunction with their project is replacing the force main from the pump station. Improving from a 4-inch force main to a 6-inch. And that increases the capacity of the pumps. So that it's not in the road, we're not digging up the road. It's all off in the grass side. There's a utility easement running up it's called the county line road side of Schoolhouse Road as a utility easement. And the current force main is in the grass there, and new one was put next to the existing one. That goes all the way to the top of the hill near Glenbrook Drive. So just letting it's not on the project plan, the development plan. That's why it's a separate set of plans. So you've seen the development plans, you may not have seen this work. So I did inform, I mean, the staff and engineer know about it, but I'm not supporting about it. So you see digging on Schoolhouse Road, that's what it's for. It's not our contractor, we'll be the contractor of the developer.
So
It's all his cost.
the entire length of Schoolhouse from the development all the way down the hill to the pump stations being replaced?
From the pump station up to essentially the top of the hill,
Right,
which is up to about just short of Glenbrook Drive.
okay.
It's about 1,500 feet.
So you'll be going through the crosswalks and the sidewalks
Yeah,
and,
whatever's in the way there, there's maybe some trees, crosswalks. There is one road crossing, one of those streets that goes into Glenbrook is, in a way, whether they'll be going, trying to go underneath that or digging it up, it's probably going to dig it up.
Window.
yeah. What are you aware of when that work's gonna take place? Is that,
No, not present time. It depends on when this development actually gets started. And I think the developer said he wants to get started part of his project first and then do this somewhere in the middle. So like that timetable wise, I don't even know when that they'll start doing site work other than
summer,
demolition work.
maybe?
They won't start April, May, and they said it could take up to 3 years. For the
3
development.
years.
It's a big
Yeah,
development.
I'm not sure when,
So I'm
we'll
guessing
probably, you know,
a year or two for that stuff, and then you at the tail end, probably 2 years out.
Yeah.
Year and a half.
And so even though I do this somewhat on the side myself, how do you replace a line that's active with another line without service disruption?
they're gonna build next to it.
They're just gonna build right next to it,
It'll
okay?
stay in service until the connections.
And then there'll be a certain point where it'll be cut off
Yeah,
and probably like 2 o'clock in the morning and then,
yeah, it's been a short time to switch from one to the other.
right, okay.
How is the capacity of the plant? We have a lot of, as you know, a lot of development proposed, some approved.
We're up close to the edge. Of course, we always have been, it seems, as long as it's been here, but the New Britain, Chalfont side, I think we're good for the amount of connections that, the foreseeable future anyway. We're negotiating with Bucks County Water Sewer Authority as far as their side of the capacity, because they share the plant capacity, so.
And what are you negotiating with them over?
They need some more capacity in our plant now, because a lot of that has to do with the wet weather, but they didn't have, when we expanded the plant, they didn't have as much extra capacity there as we did. And they've kind of gotten right up to the limit on there, so we're kind of looking at improving some facilities and restructuring agreement that's still in the very beginning stages.
So if they take more of that capacity, what does that do to our allotment?
You're not gonna take any months.
Okay,
What about your infiltration project? How's that going?
We're still waiting for a report from the company that did the study. After that, we'll be taking a look at it and see where we want to do some work. Not quite sure what it's going to say.
Well, you had started the infiltration project a while ago, a number of years ago, you started looking at infiltration.
Oh, well, we're always looking at infiltration. We specifically did, back in the fall, we had a company come in and study certain drainage areas that were problematic on Big Birdie Farms and another area in the borough. To look at the details of exactly where it's coming from and so we can address them more specifically.
So how,
I mean, if you want to just randomly got doing work without, this will give us a better, detailed look at where we should be doing work.
so how close are we getting on those big storm events then? If, I know the infiltration's an issue, right? You did Brittany Farms. I think you did one other area that you were trying to test, Tower Hill or somewhere? Or where was that?
The Rosemore tract.
Rosemore, yeah.
Hallberg,
Yeah.
West area.
When you're experiencing those big storms like we have seemingly all the time now, how close are you actually at capacity and your ability to handle?
Yeah, we max out. I mean, you can always use more, no matter how much you build for those kinds of events, you can always use more. Just, your flow goes up 4 or 5 times your normal flow. And we've got decent facilities for that, but that's what we're looking into with the Bucks County is improving those wet weather events. We can handle it better.
How do we, so if we're maxing out capacity, how's our outflow then? I mean, are we still meeting our requirements?
It's borderline, yeah. Good days, it's okay, and if it's real bad, it's
So then
not
what's
that
what's the response to it being borderline? If we're getting bored, we're having more storms, what's the plan to try and help expand that?
well, there's 2 plans. One is to reduce the infiltration. I know Bucks County is working significantly on their end, doing a lot of work, but they had an EPA mandate. I don't know if you read the papers, but they got fined by EPA for, various overflows, and then they had a mandate to fix it. So they're working on hours. And the other option is to look at your plant capacity facilities and see what can be done, which is what we're doing.
So, I understand the process basically, but so if could you educate the rest of the board on the concept of what an EDU stands for? We're looking at, just take High, and I'm using High Point as an example. We've got a very large commercial facility that was a, gym along with at one point a nightclub and a banquet facility with multiple offices and a swimming pool. And, that structure has a certain amount of EDUs, right? And now we're going to a residential neighborhood with 136 units,
Close to that. Yeah.
136,
130 something.
30 some. What's the, can you give us an idea of what the difference is between the two?
Yeah. First of all, you asked what an EDU is, and it stands for equivalent dwelling unit. We consider an EDU to be one dwelling unit, no matter what it is, townhouse, big house, whatever, it's a dwelling unit. And the equivalent part of it comes into like commercial capacity. We had on our books for that High Point facility 50 EDUs. In other words, they had the equivalent of 50 dwelling units. We were billing them base rates based on 50 EDUs. So when it came time to assess them for the 137, we billed them for 87 tapping fees for the 87 new units above the 50 that they already had on the books with us.
Okay,
So to answer your question.
it sort of answers the question. So then how does that equate into your capacity when you're saying you're close to capacity and we're adding in 87 more units? How close does that take you in, because you theoretically have a certain cap on how many EDUs you can offer out there before, you have to go and reach moratorium status until you have to look at a plan expansion.
Correct, yes. And I'd say on the Chalfont-New Township side, we have enough of a gap in our flow allocation in the plant to handle enough EDUs for this foreseeable future.
Okay, so like, we have this overlook at Wawa, as Craig likes to call it, that's coming down the road. That's another 44 units,
And
right?
that's another reason why I was going to get into this. We need to look at the 537 plant, the township. I had mentioned this at a staff meeting, it was a couple months ago, I forget what it was. That should be re-looked at. It's over 20 years old. It was from 2005. a lot of things have changed as far as land development and, it should be updated. It's a thing I got to get together, whether in an engineering level first. I don't know how to address it. Probably that's on us at this point to start it, but nothing's been done on it so far. But I want to mention it to everybody here. Your 537 plan is getting updated and should be at least
We wanted to-
relooked at.
I think we talked about updating or removing the transition zone. It seems a bit more public sewer. I think that was done because of the on-lot versus public.
That would just cause us to have a philosophical conversation about.
I think John looked at it.
You've got
Trying to make
commercial
sense.
areas change to residential change to commercial, things like that, and it just needs an update.
So, yeah, I agree with John. I
Proceed
think
with that.
they should take the lead and then,
But we have to create the philosophy. If you guys are discussing about the concept of getting rid of the transitional zone, then that's a huge philosophy shift.
It certainly is, yeah.
You know, and you know, you've already heard me state to Mr. Bolito, there's areas of township we're not going to even remotely encourage.
And we should probably look at more detail, even the other areas, just within the sewer areas. You got a lot of just large lots there that probably not gonna see public sewer for a long time, but they're in a public sewer area.
So if it's in, if it
Probably
is,
put in more detail.
so can you explain to us then, if we have an area that is supposed to be publicly sewered? Are you telling us then that you have to account for those possible capacity
We
in
did account for that in the 537 plan, which generated the last plan expansion to the capacity right now. Just looked at zoning on every lot that was in the public sewer service here. That's how it was calculated.
Gotcha. Yeah, out of the 5 people here on the board, only one person here was on the board the last time the 537 plan was done. So the rest of us need
Yeah,
to
it's
kind
all
of
new
have,
stuff, yeah.
be caught up on what all this means.
Yep.
So,
and that wasn't something we said we were gonna do. You need to look at it. John has to account for it anyway. That line may change, it may shrink, and may go away. So that would be, he has other things to work on. But I think they should, like we did last time where we did the on lot, they did the public. This case, I don't think we need to touch the on lot. We just need to update the public part. Let them get started. Once they get going, then we should have a staff meeting to get authorization for us to get involved and look at that and then bring it to the board for those big decisions to make on, you know. I think there's a lot of input that has to happen at staff level and then to provide recommendations to the board, at least in that transition zone, and also other areas where maybe John said, hey, we can't get sewer there, and maybe we gotta look at changing the on lot area.
Right, maybe you don't want sewer.
Right, you know, so it goes both ways. It may shift, it may go away, make it big. I don't think it's gonna get bigger, but.
Someone had come to me at one of the meetings and had said that they were noticing the sewer line being put in at the moment, and they're fronting it, and they were saying, am I supposed to join that? Am I supposed to ask to join that? So what is that if somebody says, there's a sewer line going in front of me, but I haven't been approached to say, would I like to join it, or?
We send letters out to everybody along the sewer line adjacent to it,
You did?
notifying that there were laterals being put to their property.
Okay.
Mainly the purpose was if the lateral's not in the spot you'd like it to be,
Mhm.
we don't know your basement, your septic
Yep.
system or anything like that. If you want to move it, you know, let us know, we'll move it for you. We made a decision early on to put the laterals in because knowing it is accessible, we don't want people digging up a newly paved road to put their lateral into the main. Let's get them, get the laterals out past the road, so when the road's paved, nobody's got to touch it again. So we did send letters out. We didn't tell them either way whether they had to connect. We just told them it will be available for your future use, should you like to tie in.
Can you give me
this-
just a gauge of when, so I'll go back to this person and say, she didn't think there was any letters given out. She said, I don't remember hearing anything.
It was
So this-
around the time where we gave the contractor the notice to proceed, which was last year.
Okay,
Now, if they call and send, if they didn't get it.
I
call the
suggested
office
that.
and send another letter.
Yeah.
But-
So that's, and I wasn't gonna get into this.
Mhm.
We
That's
heard
a lot,
most
I get a
people-
lot of questions, John.
Okay.
We both get a lot of questions on this. I was gonna make that process part of the new Act 537. I haven't talked to John or Matt, but we need to have some more just general framework for how that all goes down with the sewer authority. After the Act 537 is approved, there's no process for that. And I get a lot of questions on my end. And John then gets the back end of it like, hey, he's already, you know, halfway into a project. So I think that's something we can discuss at staff level and put some framework in the new Act 537 and how it goes down. So John has his his guidelines of when he needs it coming before us, how the residents are involved, who gets notified. The last couple of jobs, I think staff's been all over the place on where to go and how to handle a resident. No different than the water, where a resident comes in and what's the policy. So
We generally haven't run sewers out to anywhere ourselves. It's all development driven for the most part until this project. And remember that the primary purpose of this project was for us to move pump station and get rid of one that was ancient and falling apart. So we needed a new one, and to do that, we needed to run new pipelines in and out. The collateral benefit was wherever we're running the lines past, well, those people now have access to public sewer, but that was not our primary purpose. When we give them public sewer, it was to provide us the pipelines for our pump station. So, but we did put the provision in for anybody that's running past or the line runs past to tie into it.
And
And we'll be the next
wherever you stop, that's usually where someone gets a call up here at the board
Yeah.
of a resident, why they stop here.
Why they stop? They didn't go further. Yeah. The next letter would go out was when the project's nearing completion, notify them the procedures and the cost if they'd like to tie in.
Did you see update for you, the plan module got approved for finally the township lawn,
Yeah.
the low hand project, so. So I think we can move on to phase 2 or 3, which involves you an expansion up there, but that way the developer's not being held up, so that finally got approved. So they'd still like to meet with us, I think, to talk about future planning up there, which dovetails into the Act 537.
Yeah.
No question?
Yep, I've got one last one.
But I have a couple more things, but
Oh, okay. No, I was just looking at January 10th minutes, and it was talking about it was from the solicitor's report, but they were talking about September 1, 2021 house backups. Can you just explain what happened and what was the remedy? It says talks about a
That
backflow
was,
preventer valve.
yeah, that was a result of a backup there on one of the hurricanes we had. We talked about that, 500-year hurricanes, and it was back-to-back years, and there was a backup in a house, and we took care of all of them on our own, various ways of either covering the cost through our insurance company, putting backwater valves in, except for one property owner did not, and just decided to contact his lawyer. So they went that route.
That one.
That's
Okay.
why the solicitor reporter, everything was done in executive session because it was involved with lawyers and litigation, and it was a settlement between our insurance company and then.
So that was, as you say, it was a result, those backflows were a result of the storms. Have you
Yeah.
had, we haven't had anything major since, well,
No,
we
not
have had
since-
something major since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Rains.
quite a while to resolve because they were involved insurance and lawyers.
Thank you.
One last thing, in conjunction with talking with the 537 plan, we need to resurrect our discussions with the sewer ordinance. We were working on this prior to COVID, 3 years ago. Prior to COVID, it went back and forth for a while, and then I got dropped, and COVID hit, and it just kind of stopped. And I've been talking to our attorney, and we have the previous draft. I'd like to match that forward to you, and you can just go from there with it. But couple of reasons, everything needs to be updated. But right now, look at your ordinances. You don't have a true sewer use ordinance in your ordinances. There was one. It was from the original one from the mid-60s, and it's gotten lost. I don't have a copy. You don't have a copy. It's not in your code of ordinances. Chalfont-New has one. I have a copy of theirs, but what you had mirrored that. It was the exact same ordinance, but it's nothing that nobody has the copy of the township one. But even so, it was from 65 and just needed updating, and that's when the process is. So
Part of that, just, again, I think
Educating us.
educating you guys, I think
Yeah.
part of that ordinance was initiating a inspection of
yes,
sewer lines
inspection program, yeah.
upon a sale of a home and prior to settlement, occupancy, all that kind of fun stuff. So that is a, you know, a huge thing for our residents.
So then how would that work? Would that be, no,
I have no idea.
so
It was,
would they
it
reach
was
out
in
to
the
you and
ordinance.
say, as part of the home and occupancy, so we would need to talk to the sewer authority, get them to come and inspect it.
Yep.
Give a report, and then that would be part of anybody's settlement.
That's probably how it would work. Yes, I'm not sure of the details, but that's probably how it would
A
work.
lot of other townships and boroughs require that. Bristol Borough does, Lansdale Borough does.
It's become a big thing in recent years just because of the II problems and people buying homes that don't know that there's a big issue with their on-site sewer line. So it didn't used to be, but now it's, a lot of ordinances are adding that. If they didn't have it, they're adding it to their ordinances.
Mhm.
Is that only for, you're talking about public sewer though, right? Just your public.
Yeah.
sewer.
No, we're talking about the private side inspection.
Yeah,
No, I
it's
mean,
so
not
from
the-
the connection to the house.
Yeah. no
Inspecting.
online, but we have also have.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no.
Program that
Public-
we never
public sewer.
implemented either.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, back when we were doing this, different manager, different solicitor, even you weren't sitting here, I think Eugene was probably sitting here, was she not? I don't know.
That was in my time out.
It's almost like we're starting. Totally.
No, anytime if someone's buying a house with septic,
That's a different story.
it's always, so. But some townships require an inspection or a pump
A
out
lot.
before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's all over the map.
Other things?
That's all my list. Anything else on your list?
How's your financial situation?
We're good.
You good?
Yep.
Lots of money in the bank?
Lots of money. Enough money. Not a ton of money. Don't believe me. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough to keep us going.
that reminds me. We talked about this last year. If you're going to have a rate increase, it'd be nice if we could put that in a newsletter, or you could make residents more aware of it than just fine print on their bill. But to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen fine print on my bill saying that the rates were going up.
They just,
We have, I'm not sure the last one did, but.
You know,
we did put
there could be a
notice on our
more,
website, but nobody reads it.
yeah, no, if we could figure out a way to communicate those types of things a little bit better, maybe, either our website, link it to our, to our newsletter in the fall, that kind of stuff, so that people aren't.
you send out notifications to the township, correct? Of rate
Separate
increase.
letters on it?
So then maybe add to our new newsletter, maybe something twice a year. That's our expectation. Just a little update from the Chalfont-New Britain Sewer Authority.
Your website is updatable,
Mhm.
day to day. Would you
Yep.
want to put something on that when it happens, or is that not something that would fit into your website?
We would want to do both.
Model?
Do both.
think
Probably
both.
both.
I mean, I think as soon as it
Yeah.
happens, like, let Matt know if you want to put something in there, like, you just, PR notice.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where we go, but
usually how I manage things is let each organization handle their own PR. If we can play a role in promoting that, I would rather kick them to your website if you are promoting it on your website. What our challenge is that not everybody goes to the website. And so the newsletter is a really good resource for us, print form that's on a, twice a year basis. Long story short, we're here to help as much as we can, and we'd be happy to promote whatever you have that would affect our township residents.
the rate increase may have already taken place by the time.
Yeah, by the time that,
Around
the
it.
information's disseminated. Yeah.
I think that it should be on once you've decided on it, the board has voted on it and decided, then it should be communicated to the township, and it should go on our website also. I don't think many people even know you exist or have a website. It's just a
Yeah.
bill that comes and,
Mhm.
but I think anything that affects our residents should be put on the website.
We can share it from their website. Yeah, point
Yeah.
them back to their
Yeah,
website. and
yeah,
share
but
it.
just, there should be something on our website too, that notifies our residents,
Mhm.
and that goes for all the utilities, that the water and sewer. Because otherwise people are just, what's going on? And then we get phone calls at the
Mhm.
township.
Mhm.
We're responsible for everything.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
Right, Central Station.
There's nothing like getting called about a particular subject and not even being aware of it. That's part of the problem.
No, you can't be aware of everything. You gotta redirect to.
Well, you can't tell that to the resident, though. The resident thinks we're aware of everything. You should be aware of everything. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, board members, for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, board. Next item we have the subdivision land development projects, which we have none at this point. Did you want to make any comment about anything?
I just wanted to say that there was one originally scheduled for this morning, but because we didn't get the plans in time, we've pushed them to the April. I did print out, the board had been forwarded the digital copies of these plans on Friday. And I did make a paper copy for everybody available tonight, or tonight, this morning, for your records in preparation for the work session meeting scheduled for April.
Okay. Next item we have is zoning hearing board application.
There are two for your consideration this morning, Mr. Chair. The first before us is 19 Skyline Drive. That's a zoning hearing board application seeking variance for additional impervious surface. It's a single family residence with a currently existing in-ground pool. The residents are seeking to add a paver patio and increase the size of their driveway. It's not exactly clear from the application how much above the impervious surface ratio limit that they would be going. Frankly, they're already above it. It's a 25% ratio. And with the pool, they're already above it. That being said, given what they're asking for, the solicitor's office has reviewed the application. We see no reason for the township to intervene in this matter. We believe that the zoning hearing board can have that appropriate.
Questions on that one?
I have two comments on that. While reviewing the application, I noticed that our application for the notary refers to the person who's signing it. He says, and maybe we could adjust that to he, she. And the second is looking at their plan. They're also in violation of a couple other zoning regulations with their shed and their pool equipment placement. So I'm just making that comment that
More involved than just the expansion.
They may already be a non-conforming use,
I was just going.
but does that have any? Yeah, you can't look at that. Yeah,
It's not before the board anyway.
oh, it's not before them, no, but yeah. But everyone puts their shed back in the corner of the property.
La, 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 la.
Okay,
The second zoning hearing board application is that of 4275 County Line Road. That's the giant at the corner of Butler and County Line. It's a variance requesting change of signage and additional signage. The property is already over the zoning ordinance limit for the amount of wall signage. The zoning ordinance limits to 2. The property already contains 5. They are asking to actually reduce the overall size of the 5 that they currently have, but they're also seeking to add 2 more. The plans that they submitted along with the application make it pretty clear what is being done. Given the fact that they're already above and a variance has already been previously granted apparently, and the fact that most of the signage they're replacing is actually reducing in size, the solicitor does not recommend intervention in this matter, and we believe that the zoning hearing board should hear the matter and make the decision.
so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're basically saying they have 5 signs now,
Correct.
the total up to X.
Correct.
Now they want 7 signs, which are basically gonna total up to X.
The 7 signs will be above X, but it's not so.
Not appreciative.
It's somewhat, so let's put it this way, the one sign they're replacing is currently 50 square feet. They're looking to go down to 44, 45. Another sign they're looking to replace is currently 85, 86. They are looking to reduce that to 70. Another sign is a 48 square foot sign that they're reducing to 22, so that's a substantial reduction.
Another sign is essentially staying the same. A Starbucks sign will be 20 square feet and it's currently about 20 square feet. Then they're adding a 9.5 square foot sign on the facade and a 23 square foot sign on the facade. So all things considered, the total square footage looks like it might be going down slightly, but it is an addition of 2 more signs over what they currently have.
I personally think they have enough signs, but we'll leave it to
Zoning hearing board to
leave it
decide.
to the zoning hearing board.
Okay, is that the opinion?
Yep, fine.
Thank you. And we go into informational items, department updates, administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After the last meeting a week ago, when the board authorized the advertisement of the Parks and Rec ordinance, the township solicitor discovered another matter that he would like to discuss with you pertaining appointment math and those appointed to the Parks and Rec board.
So thank you, Mr. West. The simplest explanation of it is the board decided at its last meeting that the Parks and Rec board would consist of 5 members who were each appointed for 3 years. That's fine, but the following statement in the proposed ordinance states that each of the members shall be appointed in separate years such that they're appointable year by year. That's unworkable with 5 and 3. So there are 2 possible ways to resolve the matter. There are 2 suggested ways to resolve the matter. There's obviously more than just that, but no, it's not. I apologize.
Option 1 is the 5-year term.
So the unworkable language becomes, except that members first appointed shall be appointed so that no more than 1 member's term shall expire annually. The 2 simplest ways to change are either change the terms of the 5 members from 3 to 5 years, such that they would each serve 5 years and one would be appointed and come up every 5 years. Or that the language I just read to you can be changed to read, quote, no more than 2 members' terms shall expire annually. That would allow the board to appoint 2 members that expire in 24, 2 in 25, and 1 in 26, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That still guarantees that a majority of the board does not turn over in any given year.
I like that.
Yes, yeah, I like the second thought.
Any problems with that wording?
No.
Option 2.
I will make that change, and you've already approved the advertisement. I don't need any new reapproval. It'll be advertised immediately.
I also have a comment about the use of the term elector that we had discussed at the last one. Something had rung a bell. There are certain religious groups that do not vote because they believe it is judging another human being. So if we use the word elector, we will be discriminating against that religion.
I think we took that out.
I know we took it out, but I'm
Yeah.
just another reason
Yeah.
not to put that in any further ordinances either.
Yeah.
I myself am not a Jehovah's Witness, but they do not vote.
Okay.
Or registered.
Done with that?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. 2023 Bucks County Consortium materials bid.
I will hand this riveting conversation over to the assistant manager, Mike Walsh.
Thank you. So the consortium bid was opened on February 24th. Unfortunately, I was out ill last week, so I didn't get to tabulate everything. But I wanted to make the board aware that we did receive a number of bids for stone, blacktop. We also added this year concrete for C-tops and things like that. Were added to the bid this year, which would be new. We're going to be taking a look at that, Ryan and I, to see if we can't get some better prices for those type of items that we purchase annually and do work on. I'm hoping to have a memo to the board sometime this week with future action to award the bid at the March 20th meeting.
How the prices look so far, or have you looked at them at all?
I haven't compared them yet to last year, but I think most of the blacktop tonnage prices were in the $63 to $70 range in there. But hopefully I'll have more of that information out. More compiled for everybody to look at.
Any questions? Okay. Tricentennial Committee, fireworks.
So this was requested to put on the agenda from the last meeting for the board to discuss whether or not it wants to be supportive of fireworks, to provide some background and some guidance to staff that we can then communicate to the Tricentennial Committee. And Mike has been running point on this one, and he's provided some materials for you at your at the dais today. So I'm going to turn this back over to Mike for this conversation. So the two pieces of items, two items you have in front of you. One is a booklet that was about the actual fireworks presentation costs that was provided by Mr. Showalter through Don Malak, who would be the person putting on the fireworks. The other is their initial plan they submitted to the township showing the area that they would like to set the fireworks off. This plan is been under review by our fire marshal. We are also going to send it down to the police department to take a look at it as well. I have looked at it and we're going to put together some formal responses for the Tricentennial Committee. Because there are some components that we've discussed internally that we feel like need to be added to this, such as showing where your pedestrians are parking, your attendees are watching from. Those sort of things I think would be beneficial to be added to that plan to really give a good grasp of the entire site and what we need. And then there are some initial comments that I talked to Randy about this morning that I wanted to bring up to the board because I watched last week's meeting. And I know there was some discussion about the board wanting to kind of give their nod to continue forward with this. And I think these two pieces are kind of important to bring up for your conversation. The first was Randy said within our fire prevention code, while they show a diameter on there, we also want them to update what that distance is they're showing because it doesn't show it on the plan. But based on emails, my guess is it's approximately 300 feet is what they're showing. But we want them to update that and say that. But Randy said, in addition to what is the safe area to set off fireworks from structures, they also need a perimeter that is 560 feet to keep out spectators, which would include, I would think, talking in initial conversations with Sean Knight. I think Christine, our events coordinator, talked to him. There were issues in the past with people coming from the houses behind and walking through that area. So that's a point I wanted to make sure I brought up to the board. So they would have to look into really closing off that area. And the other thing Randy brought up is, while it's not near houses, there are 5 structures that the township owns within that area. There are 4 dugouts and there's a pavilion. Now, Randy said, based on the code, it would be up to this board, but the landowner can waive any rights and allow that to occur, but would potentially be taking on the liability for those structures if something happens. So this board could allow it, but Randy is classifying them as structures. So if this board would have to waive and allow the fireworks to occur near those structures. But those are the 2 pieces of information I wanted to make sure the board got this morning for your discussion.
And were we waiting until Wednesday night for somebody from that committee to then reach out to the shrine, or were we reaching out to the shrine? I don't remember how we left that on Monday.
I don't think we specified.
No, I don't think we.
I don't think there was specific direction. I think it was more to talk at the committee meeting next time about.
Okay, all right.
I think that's the way I took it. When I
Okay,
watched it.
yeah, I couldn't remember. That's why I'm asking as a question. So then on Wednesday night, we need to bring that up as well, because that may or may not. Who knows?
I mean, certainly doesn't hurt to contact them and see what the status is up there.
Maybe we could ask Christine to do that in the interim because she's talking to them about the bingo.
Yeah, that's probably good. Yeah, and actually have an answer for Wednesday if you can.
That's a good idea.
So the circle that they've given on this map, that's 300 feet?
My guess is from an email I received from them, they said per 1-inch shell, 75 feet per per inch of shell that you shoot off, so they're recommending 4-inch shell, so that's why I'm making the assumption
But this
That
is
is-
300.
that is 300 feet.
So, but Randy wants 500.
So the shell distance is one thing. What Randy is saying, there needs to be a 560-foot perimeter around the central location.
Spectators would be.
There's houses here where that would be impossible to
Yeah.
do.
So it means it's not possible at North
So
Branch Park.
that's
Yeah, it's saying it's not possible at North Branch, right?
Unless we move
just
the,
another piece of information.
the site back further, but I believe there's more houses in the woods back here too.
There's
You
no
know,
way.
we were gonna pass this along to the Tricentennial community to make sure they could then do their due diligence and provide a better updated plan
Mhm.
that can show some of these comments that were incorporated.
Well, since it's our committee, could we get somebody to just draw what the actual circle should be on here for them? Because they're gonna all be like, well, what's 560 feet look like?
Where did this come from?
Bob Showalter and
Well,
Leo
that
Rimmer
company that
and
put it
John
together.
Malak worked on that.
Okay, so I'm sure they could first tell you what the actual,
Just again, I'm making an educated guess. I think there's a piece in the top right corner that says 4-inch shells.
yeah,
Mhm.
So based on the email I received, 75 feet per inch. That's why I'm saying, it. I'm making the assumption it's a 300-foot.
I guess what I'm saying then is, can we give them a heads up before Wednesday so they can be prepared so we can talk about that on Wednesday night?
I'm gonna do my best to get that information to them today or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
If the board is uncomfortable with the distances involved, if you're within your power to just tell them that you don't want the fireworks at West Branch Park. Or North Branch Park, I'm sorry.
North Branch.
I mean, we're
We
really close to
understand that.
people's backyards.
but
So my Google Maps eyeballing it here, it's 350 feet.
Okay,
so we'd need another 200 feet.
Which is
Well-
putting you in.
actually, that's almost
in that
putting you at the
area.
street.
Well, this is discussion already sounds like we all are in favor of doing fireworks. That was the first question, wasn't it? You wanted to
Yes.
see if the,
Yeah,
so is that what we're saying? We're all in favor of doing fireworks?
But-
It's the logistics of how we would do fireworks. And if we can't do it at North Branch Park, the only place would be somewhere like Shrine of Chester Hobart. Or reducing the size of shell.
Or
Right.
possibly veterans, but then you have parking issues
Yeah.
there.
Where would people
Like no
go?
parking, yeah.
or if we could convince the county to let us use New Galena.
Or I'll bring up another possibility. Cotton Park.
There we go. There's,
You could
Parking
actually
West
set
Branch.
up, you could actually set up the fireworks in the field.
Still a parking issue.
Yeah, that's a parking issue still.
You have 120 cars there. Parking
You'd have to park
Yeah.
them.
The nice thing about here is that the developments around it are all
It's
township
gonna
residents.
be a problem if you do it there, though. That's gonna be within that. It's still
we
gonna
don't have to care if we take a few businesses out, do we?
Yeah.
That's gonna be a problem, I think. It's
Yeah,
a
well,
lot.
there's a house right there.
Contact
So,
the shrine.
yeah,
We'll have Christine start work on the shrine and part of our recommendation number 2 will be to also think about alternate sites
Mhm.
and explore that. If they can't make it fit with the comments that we received from
Or-
the fire marshal.
Or if changing the size of the shells reduces the area, look at that too. I mean. Other townships seem to do it safely, so I think we need to get creative if it's something that we want to pursue.
And as I said, the New Britain Business Alliance has done it at UNAMI successfully.
You know?
Well, they
Yeah.
used to. Yeah.
And they
But you-
put them off at,
I
They
think
do
you-
met
Covered Bridge too.
Yeah, I didn't know they did them at UNAM.
And the Covered Bridge is just surrounded by houses. Yeah.
And forest.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing they did at Covered Bridge is they have people park in the shopping center
they
and then they
bus them.
shuttle bus them, which
Yeah.
I'm not going to get involved in.
Yeah.
That's a little bit too much.
yeah, did you see the price on page 4?
Yeah.
I thought it was only like 4,000. This is showing 7,000.
Well, that was the price, that was the price they quoted initially.
Yeah.
So this seems a little more,
Well, those are those 4-inch shells.
they have 2-inch, 3-inch shells, and then they have 4-inch shells. So if the 4-inch became 3 inches, then that would be or something else.
Yeah, reduce the perimeter.
Because the grand finale is all 3-inch shells. Fire department permit fee.
So we're all saying yes to it. We're all thinking Fall Fest Day. Would it be separating them?
Not
I-
all, we're not all thinking Fall Fest Day, but
Okay, well,
It's,
we're all saying yes to fireworks.
Yes.
Now logistics. We can't make that choice right now. We need more information. We'll leave up to Tricentennial. Second thing, what day would we as a board want to see it? I personally don't think we could have it with the fall festival, with all those events and move it. So what does, either separate them and have a part A and a part B, morning and an afternoon?
yeah, but now we're getting into the hidden costs again. We have to remobilize staff. And
So
which is why I don't think
Yes.
that Fall Fest is gonna be the day for this.
yeah, so we,
Another day. I understand that our actual day of founding was sometime in July.
well, now you're talking about doing it on the same day as the parade.
Well, no.
No, not necessarily.
It's
Well, I
Sunday.
mean, it would be more appropriate. I mean, if you wanna have fireworks, have them the
July
same
4th?
day of the parade. I mean, why have it on a nondescript day?
There's very few people, this place is deserted on July 4th. It's my neighborhood is.
People are away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's the same issue with having it on Fall Fest Day, where you've got two events then.
yeah,
right.
yeah. So we're basically looking at,
Separate.
we're gonna blow the budget just on having to mobilize staff for a whole. Remember Beth, the whole idea was we were trying to encourage them, like, let's not remobilize staff, public works,
Right,
police.
which is why I don't think it's, and I don't think moving Fall Fest to a later time is gonna work because of the
Because the
vendors
vendors
and
and
the other
everybody,
people.
right?
So what I was thinking here, what I mentioned is that maybe we will have a, I don't know, picnic evening or something.
Sounds
Have
like,
people come
Well,
and
you still-
picnic somewhere and
You
then,
still have the situation, the number
Yeah.
one situation is where?
right, well, that we gotta figure out.
Yeah.
Unless, as Stephanie says, if we cut down the size of the shells, we could actually
Yeah,
do it
but
here.
I don't think you're good. Oh, they're saying 75 feet, so cut down to a
For
3-inch.
4-inch shells, and there's 2-inch
4-inch.
shells.
you're
Oh, yeah,
looking at
but-
225 feet instead of 300.
Well,
And does that, I would presume that reduces the area for spectators too, right?
I'm gonna defer that question
Yeah.
to Randy. From that, I mean,
If it doesn't, then we're back to
I
the
mean,
same
the
problem.
bottom line is though, like what Sean Knight brought up, we do need to make sure that whole area is secure, so that's
Right.
gonna take either fencing staff, it's gonna take something to
Fencing.
make sure that we're keeping people out of where they're shooting off
Right.
fireworks.
Or find out what they did at UNAMI and what they've done at Covered Bridge.
I think this was the same company they used. That's
Mhm.
how Bob did all this.
I meant the
Oh.
organizations that put it
Yes.
on, how they
Keep
managed
people,
to
yeah.
secure
Yeah.
a perimeter.
because I'm assuming.
Hoping
what-
they didn't cut corners just so it could happen.
Well,
My bottom line,
One's
my
on the
take on their
schools,
first
it's-
attempted thing was it's a good start,
Yeah.
but it does
Right.
need, they do
Needs to
need
be
to
fleshed
answer
out.
more logistical questions
Send
of
it
what
back
they're
to them.
trying to do than they have so far.
Right, the only issue is we're March and they, if we're asking them now, move it sooner.
I mean, I think planning wise, the fall is when it's gonna need to be.
Yeah, I
because
mean,
we're never
we're,
gonna-
they may be
to try
booked
to
all
push to
summer
get this-
long.
Yeah, to try to push to get this done. I mean, I would say to push to do it July 4th, you probably aren't gonna get them. I'm sure
No.
they're booked at this point.
Yeah.
And they're probably booked
Right.
all during the summer on weekends, I would think, I don't know.
okay.
So are we saying continue
Continue.
investigating?
I guess so.
Well, we could also say one of the investigation is how many people would you need to actually put on just the fireworks? Doesn't have to be staff. I mean, if the Tricentennial people want to do it,
Yeah, but we can't have Joe Dirt on the public being responsible for public safety. That's
that's
not.
what I'm asking. How many people? Would it be just one person who needs to be the fire marshal and then have not all of our staff being the ones who are being the
Parking.
people on the grounds? This is where you need to get creative. Like if Brandy wouldn't need to be here for Fall Fest, but be here for that night.
Right, well.
So then that's where
bi-
you need to be creative in the,
Bigger deal
many
though
people?
is crowd control.
Mhm.
Are we going to entrust crowd control to volunteers? No, we're probably gonna need the police department. And now we're looking at overtime because we're calling in our officers and
so
we're
then you talk.
blowing through.
Yes, but that's it.
But
You've
see,
gotta work out
that
who
could,
needs to-
the committee's not gonna be able to answer those questions. We're gonna need those questions from professionals. How do you handle crowd control at a firework display? Sorry, I'm looking right at you, chief.
Involved in planning this at the previous agency. They do fireworks every year, which isn't the funnest thing, but typically, I mean, they had a controlled field where the fireworks were set up at. Is basically, you know, we set up a perimeter with barricades and monitor the perimeter. You know, basically, sometimes you do have people that try to walk through that perimeter, and then you have officers stationed in those areas where you know people are going to walk through to stop them and advise them that they can't.
How many officers do you need typically?
So, I mean, we used to, I mean, when I first started there in the early nineties, we would actually hold over a whole platoon of officers, which was 10 officers. Then we got more smarter about it, and eventually we got it down to where we could do it with four additional officers.
Oh, okay. You get me scared there.
Well, that was a much bigger,
Yeah, it was, you know, and most of our officers were there for other reasons. They weren't really there for crowd control. We used, fire police mostly for crowd control. Positioning them in locations where, you know, roads had to be blocked or, you know.
But you had professional fire, right?
We have our full-time fire. Yeah.
Right, we have volunteer.
And I believe it was in
Fire,
there,
yeah.
I heard, I believe one of the board members said there was a permit fee from the fire department. They're gonna be there.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I just wonder about the level of, like, what is your expertise in terms of what professional level of crowd control do you need to maintain? I am for the fireworks, just so everybody knows.
right,
I don't want anybody getting hurt,
Right.
because that's the absolute last thing we need. So we need to make sure that if we're having this here,
Anyone or anything.
you know, there's so many access points for people to just wander into North Branch Park. From Chalfont, you know, from our, you know, from Chalfont Borough, from, you know, theoretically to Britain, you know, our own residents, you know, how do you have enough eyes to make sure nobody's wandering into the danger zone?
Yeah, it's a predicament that usually we resolve by putting officers in high mobility vehicles. So you're talking about bicycles, four-wheelers, whatever, golf carts. We've used golf carts. So we had fire department, police department, my previous agency, we each had our own ATVs. So, you know, we were able to get to places quickly and easily to push people back if we had to. And once people know, they get the word, it usually resolves itself. You know, that's you know, through communication. I mean, it's also a timing thing, right? You have areas that basically the red zone is established early during the day, and you're keeping people out of that area. And then, you know, you may have to expand that as the night goes on, but it's, when you're talking manpower, you also have to think it's not just while the fireworks are going off. We're there a few hours in advance setting all this stuff up.
And they're there afterwards, making sure.
Right, and then afterwards you got the dispersal of the crowd, which is not too bad. I mean, you have parking areas already established.
So is it possible for you to get us some kind of a action plan in terms of cost? So if you have, how many officers are on duty at one time? 6, right? 3 are on duty. Okay. So we still need to maintain service in the township, and then we need to also have officers augment it. So, I mean, is there a way you can associate a cost for that for us? So we can start to put numbers to this?
Yeah, I can start looking at it. I mean, typically, what we're, you know, even by ordinance, you know, our average overtime rate's around $80, $85 an hour.
Mhm.
So
So four officers, for 6 or 7 hours an officer, maybe.
4 hours.
4 hours?
Yeah.
Well, but he said like 3 or 4 hours before time to make sure you establish the perimeter,
Yeah.
and then you need a couple hours after the actual event. So 5 at a minimum, I would say, right?
After the event, it clears up.
Believe-
You think? Alright,
People leave. They don't hang around.
okay.
No, a previous agency that they did more than we. Different.
So four officers,
Four
4 hours, $80 an hour, we're looking at $3,200.
Yeah, that'd
Just,
be well
just,
worth.
just to have the, the officers to support. So now fireworks is $10,000 at a minimum.
How much, I mean, cause like $10,000 is what. I've been familiar with them spending $10,000 on just fireworks and they get like a 20-minute show. So how long of a show are you getting for $7,000?
I don't know, but I think the question should go to New Britain Civic Association, who puts them on a covered bridge, and to the Business Alliance, who put them on at UNAMI. How did they manage and what was their total cost? Because they had to have police and fire there also. Well, these are the questions we need to ask them.
I think that this needs to be communicated to Bob and to
Dale.
Dale today. We can't just slam them with all these questions on Wednesday night. I think they need to
Need to be at least aware of it.
be aware of it. Because they're pushing hard on the fireworks and
Well, I think we're pushing hard. We'd like the fireworks.
Yeah.
All of us would like the fireworks. The question is where.
when.
There is a member of the Veterans Committee who isn't overly enthusiastic about moving the time of the Fall Fest.
I think we've kind of worked past that, though. I don't think that's
I don't think moving the time of the Fall Fest is the way to go.
yeah.
And the Fall Fest is what it is. It's not gonna be, you're not gonna get the attendance you're gonna from vendors or residents
Right.
if you move it.
So they were also looking at renting a tent as part of this, which was a pretty significant cost, but now they don't need to have the tent for the fireworks since there's maybe,
The tent was for the Fall Fest.
yeah, for the fall festival leading into the fireworks and everything, right?
Well,
As part of the larger.
Well, that was what they were gonna use, at least this is the discussion Dale was having. The tent is for the Fall Festival. They're gonna have,
Display.
they're gonna work with some like the local museums to try and get items to kind of show a history of the township within the tent for people to walk through. And they've also talked about having reenactors, silversmith, iron worker, stuff like that.
They won't be in the tent though.
They won't be in the
Yeah.
tent, but that will be set up around the tent,
Right,
dressed in 1723-ish, that.
but it was
time
also,
period.
it was supposed to be in the evening, it was going to lead into it was all one big, huge thing, so
Right.
now they're gonna have to.
Well, the tent size, we got quotes on them, but we realized at the last meeting that the tent Dale was talking about would have been probably the entire length of this building, which we felt was a little large. So that has been cut by half, so it's not gonna be quite as expensive.
All right, so we're telling them specifically, no combined event.
Mhm.
And they really gotta start dialing this down. All right,
Well,
And just so I can summarize here, looking at like how long of a display we talking about,
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
any alternate locations. Total number of people needed to successfully manage it, which will help us put some numbers to how many staff people, how many, what the police department commitment will be, what the fire company department will be, and no combined event. Is there anything else you want me to communicate to them?
Is that committee equipped to determine properly the amount of staff and people necessary to do the event?
no,
No.
Why, I asked them that, I think you're.
Well, I think they have to be informed that that's what we're working on now, is
Well,
to determine how many.
I think
Well, I think
people
they
that
should
put on fireworks
They
as
should have
a
an idea.
profession or as a business would have an idea of how many people are needed for crowd control and setup and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And again, I was
That's
using
fine.
them making a recommendation that would then be reviewed by our professionals too, is say, well, you say 3 police officers, I think it should be 4.
Yeah.
I think
I would
that's
defer.
And
to Chief.
Dale and Bob have done this with the New Britain Business Alliance over at UNAMI, so they should have a very good idea of what it takes to put it on.
Which is why I'm curious why they haven't provided more information.
I guess we haven't asked for it.
We did.
Did we?
but I don't know.
When was that? 3 years ago?
No, last year. They put it on,
Last year?
yeah, and Covered Bridge puts it on every year too. New Britain Civic Alliance,
Civic Association.
Civic Association.
All right. Anything else, right?
To be continued.
Please, we have purchase of body worn cameras. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, before the board is the request to enter into a service agreement for the purchase of body worn cameras for the police department. As you may recall, this is something that we had as a priority in 2022 and of course going into 2023 to give us time to research cameras that are out there, would work best for the township, and also to solidify some of the terms of the grant that we got from PCCD. So we do have the $26,500 matching grant through PCCD to put towards body worn cameras. Part of that grant also includes the ability to reimburse the township for part of the server upgrade that we've recently undergone to combine the administration and the police department servers together. And we were also budgeted to purchase body worn cameras in our police department budget. So the proposal meets the budget for this year. One of the things that, you know, the board has to be aware of is that this is body worn cameras are an annual fee, and the fees are mostly for the storage of the footage, right? So we're going to use cloud-based storage, which is going to be provided by the provider. And in addition, the fees also include warranties and what they call camera refreshes. So you get a new camera in year 3, and you get a new camera in year 5. So we're proposing the purchase of 14 body worn cameras that would outfit the entire department. And based on our research, we're choosing Axon based on the reliability that they have. They are kind of the I would say premier body worn camera company out there. There's a lot of other body worn camera companies that are trying to get their foot in the door. The quality that Axon has is by far superior to any of those. We did field test 2 other body worn cameras. One was really a waste of our time. The other one is a camera that most of the surrounding agencies are actually going with based on the cost. So they're basing most of their decision just on the cost of the camera. Actually, with the grant, we're able to get basically the same cost. Actually, it's $600 a year cheaper with Axon than this other camera company. Now, when it comes to the in-car cameras, well, it's a different story, and we're still looking at that and looking at grants to offset some of the cost on those. Our proposal is to go with Axon for the 14 body worn cameras and enter into a 5-year service agreement with them.
And if I could add some things too, and Chief, maybe you could elaborate on this, on how this interacts with the policy development you have underway with your department, and that we can't just go get body worn cameras and not have policy in place prior to them being implemented.
Yeah, so actually I was on a call last week with, so the funding that PCCD has is actual federal funding. It's, being siphoned down through the federal government. So they have requirements, that our policy has to meet. And there's, I think there's about 30 criteria that they look at in the policy, and 13 of those criteria you have to have, they're mandatory. So I was on a call last week, they reviewed our policy, they came back and said, these are some recommended changes based on what you have in your policy, and these are some of the mandatory things that you have to meet. We had like one or two mandatory things that we have to clean up. It was mostly about how we're advertising or promoting to the public that we're getting body worn cameras, and who was involved in kind of the decision making. Basically making sure that the union was involved in that too. So, and a couple of other things were how we release the information if it's requested. But so one of the reasons it's taken me this long to get this before the board is we had to make sure we had most of the policy issues fixed and addressed before we go to purchase the cameras. And there are certain gates that we had to hit before PCCD even gave us the okay to go ahead and move forward with purchase of the cameras. So it is having the grant is not only helping us with funding, it's also helping us making sure that we have a good policy to stand up with. And they also assist in some of the research of cameras and what works and what doesn't work.
And everyone is on board with this, the union?
They don't really have a choice, but yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, there's two different thoughts behind body worn cameras. Overall, everyone understands it's the standard, right? I mean, everybody expects us to have cameras. And the younger officers and some of the officers that have worked in other agencies who have already had body worn cameras understand the importance of them, that they know how helpful they are. When body worn cameras first came out 20 years ago, yeah, there was a big pushback from unions and stuff like that, because they felt that body worn cameras or in-car cameras were going to hurt officers because you're going to be able to look at everything they're doing, and they're going to get in trouble, they're going to get disciplined for this, that, and everything. From my experience and what you see nationally is they help us clear officers of citizen complaints that may be unfounded. There's very few occasions where you'll find that an officer is doing something wrong on a body worn camera, other than use of force incidents that where people are getting arrested and charged and things like that. But the minor things is what everyone worried about in the beginning, and that's a moot point. It doesn't happen.
Just wondering what we can expect to happen, that's all.
So part of the policy is that, and for accreditation purposes as well, we're required to do a random audit of video for each officer every month. So the supervisors or corporals will sit down and randomly pick 2 of the officers' videos per month, review it with the officer, find out if there's any policy violations, and they have to do a report on that, which I then have to review every month as well.
Is there a standard, like, do they turn is the body camera on all the time, or is it turned on with each interaction? How does it, is there a standard across all police departments?
So it's covered in policy, so it is, you can customize it to what you want. So what the body worn cameras have are the ability to, once you hit the record button, it's always recorded.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't save the recording until you hit the button, and it goes back 30 seconds. So whatever happened 30 seconds before you hit that button is recording, but not audio recording, because by law we can't do that. So you have the ability to set that longer if you want. But usually 30 seconds is the standard. And then as far as when you're activating, those are all set by policy. If you're having basically our policy is if you're having any type of interaction with someone that's going to lead into an investigation, you're to activate the camera. There's also times where you shouldn't activate the camera if you're going into a medical call type things, you're going into a medical facility, protect people's, HIPAA rights and things like that. There are times where, something sensitive in nature, we're not going to activate the camera. So the policy is pretty clear on what the expectation is for the officers. And one of the hardest things in the beginning is to get the officers in the habit of activating the cameras. It's one of those things that has to become muscle memory. So we may have some delayed activations until they get used to having the cameras.
I see we're going to be discussing another topic in a couple seconds. Does your 14 cover the possible new officer also?
Yeah, so what we decided to do is like I won't need a camera wear all the time. So we'll, with the patrol and the traffic safety position, we'll have 13 cameras total that will be deployed by the officers on patrol and that new position that we're starting up. And then the detective and myself could actually share a camera if we needed to.
So in terms of the policy, then are all traffic stops automatically recorded?
Yeah.
What about DOT checkpoints or what's the other one? When we're doing our
DUI or aggressive patrol?
no, I guess it is no, but for the trucks.
That's
Yeah, the DOT checkpoint. Yeah.
Except, yeah.
Are they all recorded as well?
So that would be, I mean, if they're doing an inspection, they can record it. I mean, so part of that we'd have to look at. It's not required that they do it. I think it's one of those things that if they feel they're going to have an issue or need additional evidence documentation, for the inspection, they can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Those citations, I mean, they are fought, sometimes, but there's also, they're never alone when they're doing those.
Mm-hmm.
So you already have 2 or 3 other people that can substantiate what you're doing.
Okay.
That's, it's a group thing like that, typically won't unless, like I said, they want to get it on video. Because we have to watch, we have unlimited cloud storage, but still it's something we have to be able to handle ourselves too.
Right.
Especially if you have to review it.
Yeah.
So, don't necessarily have it on, your full 8-hour shift, if you don't have to. Okay. 12-hour shift. Any other questions reference the body worn cameras?
Yes.
Just from a technical standpoint, so each body worn camera is assigned to an officer. It's not something that could be shared whomever is on active duty. Is that?
Right, so we each officer will have their own body worn camera. And then, like I said, we'll have the extra one for myself, or you can, there's ways to assign it, changing the assignment through the software, the back-end software that we have. Given that we don't always have like a supervisor working, it would be difficult to physically assign a camera to an officer each shift. So this is the easiest way to go about that, most efficient way.
Okay. Any other things? The next time, hiring update for entry-level police officer.
So, as I mentioned at the last board supervisor meeting, we completed 18 interviews. We established a list, a ranked list of 7 candidates, and we're in the process of doing the background investigations on the top 3 candidates. We anticipate being done the background investigations by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. At which point, Mr. West and myself will do a second follow-up interview with each of those 3 candidates. And make a recommendation to the board. The target is to make a recommendation to the board at the March 20th meeting of who we like to consider for conditional offer of hire. And potentially have them hired by the end of the month or beginning of the month so that they could be sworn in during one of the April meetings. So I don't believe we need anything from the board right now to action, but we did want to let you know that come next meeting, we may have a proposed candidate for you to approve.
Okay. Questions?
No.
Thank you. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I provided everybody with the 2022 year-end report, which was basically just a summarization of all the hours and key projects that were completed. I don't know if any of you have any questions regarding that.
No?
Any questions?
As stated earlier in this meeting, I'll be working with Matt and Mike to put together the next 3 years for the road program. I don't know if you are aware yet or not, but robotics has completed the data collection, or we completed the data collection for robotics, and they're in the process of putting together the assessment. I was told within 30 days that we should have that information. That's pretty much what I got here.
What would be your expectation to go from that information? How much road paving would you like to do?
Everything.
The whole township or everything that's within, well, what would be the maximum you could do? What would be your?
However much is in our liquid fuel.
Yeah. Tell him how much money he has, he'll tell you how much he'll pay.
Would that give us 10 miles, 5 miles, 20 miles, do you think, at this sort of field?
So
Just
here's
get
where
my
we
idea.
need this plan, because once we have the identified road segments, we can then look at the expected costs of repaving, looking at other municipalities, getting information from what their bids are coming in at. And it's a simple equation.
Okay.
However many roads that we've identified multiplied by the amount of the average repaving equals such and such a number. If that number is under our liquid fuels, we're in luck.
Okay.
If it's not, that's when we then have to prioritize of which one of those roads that we'll have to wait till subsequent years.
Or we do what we've done the last couple of years, which is subsidize the road paving program.
When would we get that number about how much it's going to cost per mile?
That is a top priority of ours right now. We don't want to sit on this too much longer. We were hoping to have it for this meeting, but just ran out of time. So I'm hoping within a month we will have something. We've got the 2 years worth since that resolution that was forwarded to the board about curbs and sidewalks. And now my sources have indicated that there's a chance that resolution hadn't ever been passed and it wasn't signed. So I'm still digging into that also to see if it was or wasn't.
I don't remember voting.
No, we didn't.
We didn't vote on it. I don't
No,
remember.
this is from,
Way back.
yes, that one that was forwarded to you that we found from 2016, maybe 2016. 2016, 2017. We haven't been successful in finding a signed copy of the resolution. So
Okay.
that could change how we do things also, but I believe this board has said 18 months notification for residents for curbs and sidewalks, and we want to be respectful to that. So we're not going to be moving forward and making a recommendation for any road that has curbs and sidewalk work for this year. That will be for next year's. So once we get the board to, hopefully adopt the proposed road program, it will include future years, so we can then notify those residents. You are now in the 3-year road paving plan. Here are all of the things that residents will be needing to address.
So we don't have a road program yet for this year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep. So, yes, I have things on paper, and I've had discussions with those two. As to what I would like to do. Which they do not entail curb and sidewalk. Which I will sit down with them in the meantime and figure that out specifically.
So even without the plan, do you have roads, I think you had identified to us last year that you thought should be repaved? They don't have curbs and sidewalks.
Correct.
So we could do
Because we-
some paving this year.
Yes, yeah.
We, if I recall correctly from last year, we went to bid
Late.
Late.
a little late, and it's already March and people are start paving in about, I don't know, 4 weeks. So I would say we need to not necessarily wait for the computer.
Or
So
would- would this be in-house or would we be bidding this?
No, this would be bid. This would be with.
We're not waiting for that data.
Okay,
That ship has sailed. We don't have enough time to turn that around. So we're using, I'm calling it the Brian Cressman plan. What's in Ryan's head, get that down on paper, provide that to the board. And my expectation is to provide you an option to do these roads this year without curbs and sidewalks, or you will have the option to defer, choose not to do that. Bank that money in liquid fuels, and then we would have that much more in the liquid fuels account next year. So I'm hoping to bring those options to you within a month.
okay.
Well, you're saying within a month. But that brings us to the middle of April. So we wouldn't be voting on it till the end of April. And at that point, would we be going out to bid or would we be talking about going out to bid?
Once the authorization would be for you to adopt it and then authorize us to put it out to bid.
So we're even
Further behind.
farther down the road then,
When did we bid last year?
really late.
I think May would fit with the traditional timeline with what we've had here. I know we've had discussions about moving that up, but I think May would, if we do it in May, that gets us back to where we were before COVID. That would fit the timeframe that you're bidding it out.
But we had also talked about doing it earlier when you're more likely to get favorable bids because you're not already in the paving season. Did we not? Wasn't that
I
something
agree with you.
we had talked about?
Yes, we're getting better. We are.
So this should be the last year that we are not bidding
Yes.
until
The
May.
year's half over.
With the 3-year plan, we would then know what roads we're talking about for next year and can have you authorize that at the same time we do the budget and start.
Yep.
Putting that out next January.
So,
Yeah, let's push on that because again, if we have somebody in-house that knows what roads should be done this year, we should not be waiting till May to be bidding it. I'm not quite sure what's taking so long. So we have had a way that's worked for a long time and it doesn't mean we can't keep doing that and move it forward so that when we do move to a more technologically advanced method, we're already doing it on a more timely basis.
Anything else? Park and Rec.
Anything you wanted to add with Parks and Rec? No, they've been, they repaired fence lines. They're gonna be repairing dugout roof. The deal 6. The pavilion roof that needs repair. They're gonna start prep on the ball fields for the upcoming seasons. And the Easter egg hunt is set to go off, March 25th.
I have a question, on Park and Rec. I know we had talked several times about the assessment of North Branch Park, and I haven't heard anything about that recently. Where's that project?
We gave that up, if you recall from last budget. We decided to do it in-house.
Right, I know that, but what is its status in-house?
Became the capital improvement plan. So those things that were identified by our Parks and Rec were included on the capital improvement plan.
Right? So we're not doing it, in other words.
We're not.
Anything else, Park and Rec?
Don't have anything.
Finance?
Monthly financials are underway. The board should be getting copies of those within roughly next week or the week soon thereafter.
Okay. Comments? Any board comment?
Would you like to start?
Trying to formulate how to put it. So, after our presentations from our authorities, both water and sewer, and talking about inundation and major storms and everything, I would like to bring forth that we should start, and we've done Park and Rec ordinance, that we should begin looking again at organizing and formulating an EAC. I think that would help with
I mean, it's already
Help.
being done. Sean should have paperwork for us.
well, but we need to talk about it in a public meeting. Do we have all board support to do an EAC and try to, how do we want to set it up? I mean, we've talked about how many members and what would be the terms and everything for a Park and Rec, but we need to talk about it in the public meeting as well.
We did. So when we had breakfast last week, I talked to Matt, and Matt and Bill and I agreed that we were going to pursue this. And I called Sean immediately, and he's supposed to have paperwork for us to review as a framework for an EAC. So it is definitely happening.
There was
We weren't at breakfast. so
I know.
we're
Well,
here for this.
yeah.
among the,
We need to the public forum so that the.
But we
public
need a
can know.
framework to talk about before we can have a
among the
discussion.
that my office received from Grimby and Thatcher, I've identified 3 files that contain either draft EAC ordinances or actual work done by previous boards on an EAC. This was on Friday. I was out of the office on Friday, so I will be able to pick up those files today and get them here, or at least scan them and circulate them so they can be reviewed and you can start discussing them in a public meeting.
And in actuality, we have a standing ordinance creating an LPAC that I don't think we ever actually, what's the term? What?
LAE.
What's in?
No, not codified, dissolved.
What did you just
So we
say?
have a standing LPAC ordinance that describes
What's an E?
L,
LE?
Land Preservation Environmental Advisory Committee. We have a standing ordinance that I don't think was dissolved,
Dissolved. It was just
so
Okay,
never
stop
reappointed.
inactive.
it's just not active. So it's ordinance number 2005-4-14 or something like that.
From the looks of the timestamps on the files, I believe it was discussed fairly heavily in 2004. I believe the ordinance was passed in early 2005.
Okay, so now with new standards from the state about an EAC, would that ordinance be
We'll have to
not,
either revise or completely replace your ordinance.
so we would need to be starting from scratch
And
again?
that's already been conveyed to my office and we're working.
Not necessarily. If we can use the same framework that was there with the LP EAC, that would be fine. I mean, that would, in a sense, handle 2 products. We're talking about land preservation and environmental.
That's when I worked with them quite a bit back when it was created. And that's where a lot of land preservation, meet with property owners, there's a lot more land, a lot more people interested. And I spent a lot of time with staff, meet with residents, going through all that, and then updating, I don't even remember who was on it at the time, but that's why it was lumped together. It was more actually land preservation, I believe, Bill, at the time than EAC.
Yeah, so the resolution 2004-14 actually references Act 148. So it's actually uses all of the language as per the state assigned to Act 148 to create the resolution. Sorry, it wasn't actually an ordinance, it was a resolution. Yeah. 2014, 2004-14.
2004-14.
Yep.
Do we have a copy of that in the office?
I don't know. I had it. I keep all my records, so I had it in a folder at home.
Whoa,
Well, we should have all the resolutions that we passed. It should be in the resolution book.
where did the resolution books get
Well, they were in here. I'm not sure where they go.
where are they?
They're scanned and they're in a filing box now. It takes up less, all three of those shelves fit in, I think, 2 boxes. So it was a way to condense them, but they've all been scanned in. So that you can search for those things digitally.
Okay, and you can
Forward that to the
either
board.
forward them to us. Right.
Rex?
Rick?
No, you can go.
I do not believe I have any comments today.
Mike?
Me? I don't have anything in.
You talked enough, Greg, but with the other one?
Just yeah, you know what, we can talk after the meeting, that's fine. I'll ask staff after the meeting.
Is there any other board comments? Is there any public comment? Anybody online?
No, there is not.
People. I'll give it one last chance. Is there anything else for you, Matt?
Nothing. Thank you.
Is there any chance we could do a post-meeting executive session? Discuss personnel real quick,
You heard them.
I guess we could. Any
just like 5
objection?
minutes,
You can do that.
Nothing.
okay?
So we will be going into an exec session after this meeting is over. As far as announcements, our next meeting will be on March 20th at 7 p.m. Recording of this meeting will be available by tomorrow. And if there are any other questions, you can check the website for Newbury and Township. And if there are no other things, is there a motion to adjourn?
So, sorry, so moved.
The second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gonna fight you over.
Okay.